And these types of people will weaponize your vulnerability, okay? If you explain your fears, your concerns, your past, or your trauma, or your insecurities, months later, these things come back out during an argument, not to heal, but simply to win. Hello, angels. Welcome back to Quality Queen Control. Welcome to Quality Queen Control for all of my new viewers and hopefully subscribers. Make sure that you guys are subscribed to Quality Queen Control podcast. This is the only place from here on out that we will be releasing full episodes visually is only on Quality Queen Control podcast so that we eliminate any sort of confusion or anything like that. So how is everyone feeling? Thank you for spending some time with me, whether it's morning, noon, night, whatever your vibe is. I've been really feeling red lately. I feel like not only does it just bring out my complexion, but I also just think that brings out the hair, whether it's blonde, whether it's black. I don't know. I just happen to love it. Now, today, I want to talk about something that has to do with over-explaining yourself. I don't know if you guys have ever been in a dynamic before where you feel like someone is just committed to misunderstanding you. And I would argue that at the end of the day, it's giving, we've reached the end of the road, okay? What is that song? Till the end of the road. Yeah, okay? And you actually do need to let go, okay? Very much so. But if you found yourself explaining the same thing over and over and over again, you change the wording, you give more context, you apologize, you clarify your intentions, yet somehow the conversation is always ending with you defending yourself instead of being understood. You got to know when to cut someone off. Because at that rate, I would say that is someone being committed to misunderstanding you, and who has time to sit here and translate every single sentence that is to be said. Or even, I've seen this happen so many times with romantic dynamics where you're a professional apologist for how your man comes off. Oh, sorry, he didn't mean it like that. Well, actually what he meant to say was, you should switch your job description because clearly you're a translator. And who wants to spend all their life doing something like that? At some point, you have to ask yourself, is this person struggling to understand me, or are they committed to misunderstanding me? You ever have such a frustrating moment with somebody where everything you say, by the time it lands on their ears, it's a different message? And it's like this constant and perpetual state of not understanding each other, no matter how clear and articulate you are. And I, friends, I'm a very articulate person. I can articulate my ideas quite well, okay? I don't think anyone can argue with me on that one, okay? Save for your mama. So I feel in my life personally, if somebody is not understanding me, most likely it is because you're choosing to purposely misunderstand me. So today we're gonna be talking about why some people actually do not want clarity, all right? They want control. They want to keep the argument alive because the confusion benefits them more than the resolution, okay? So one of the hardest things to learn is that not everybody wants a solution or resolution. Communication only works when both people value the truth rather than trying to be right. Remember what I just said. Communication only works when both people value the truth rather than trying to be right. Some people, they'll enter into a conversation saying, well, help me understand, right? Others are even asking, well, how can I, prove that you're the one in the wrong? That's not the right way to approach a situation. These are two completely different conversations. If someone says, help me understand, genuinely, and you can tell when someone's demeanor is about helping them understand, as opposed to, how can I just prove that you're wrong? They're listening only to respond to what you said, as opposed to actually taking in and ingesting what you said so that they can get better understanding. They're just trying to hear what you have to say so that they can use the next thing against you. Right? So when you are an over-explainer, there's some psychology to this, right? Why do we keep over-explaining ourselves? Well, usually it's because we believe that if I can just find the right words, maybe they'll finally understand me. But sometimes they already understand. They just don't agree, right? Or they simply don't like your boundaries, so they're going to argue you down. Or accepting your perspective will simply require them to take responsibility and accountability. What was that show where somebody goes, take accountability? Secret Lives of Mormon Wives, where, I don't know, there was some sort of like fight with Jesse and some guy who like touched her or something like that. And one of the, I think Jesse's, was it I'm messing up the names. One of the husbands was screaming and said, take accountability. So that's what I was getting that from. Anyways, girl, I digress. Now, sometimes, like I said, people already understand you. They just don't agree. And they just simply do not, respect your boundaries. And they are, accepting accountability and responsibility for what they said and acknowledging what you said makes you actually the one in the right. This is a problem if they're entering into the conversation trying to prove that you were wrong. You understand? And those are different problems than misunderstanding. Okay? So here are most likely 5 signs that you are simply wasting your breath. Okay? They ignore your actual words. Okay, you answer the question, they pretend that you didn't answer the question, and instead they bring up something completely different. What's happening here? Did you not hear what I just said or what I just addressed? Or they twist your meaning of things. They're intentionally trying to misrepresent what you said when they know exactly what you meant. But this will lead them on to a little detour and a tangent so that they can validate and try to prove to themselves that you are what they're trying to accuse you of. I remember there was a time where I had a friend and I was telling her, okay, well, I'm going to have to not go to this dinner tonight. I thought you would understand because she's a very business, forward person. And she called up a mutual friend of ours and she was venting to her about the situation. And it's like everything I was saying, she was twisting and manipulating and turning it into, oh, well, is she going to be taking opportunities anytime she has something to do over like what I have to do? Yeah, I am actually. I am. You know why? Because this is for my business. Why would I tag along last minute? I'm the third option for you. Also, by the way, you forgot to add that into your little venting session that I'm going to prioritize a business ordeal that in a relationship that I'm nurturing so that I can be a +1 for your dinner. And I was already a third option. You only asked me because 2 other people couldn't go. So yes, I was down to go until I literally wasn't. And I don't understand why that's something to be offended by. I didn't leave you for an award ceremony. I didn't leave you to go travel far by yourself. It was a dinner. They wanted her there, not me. So I was just a +1. What is the big deal? People like this, I notice they can't adjust to changes very well. They don't adjust to change very well. And to be in my life, I realize that is a requirement. Friendship requires elasticity and also flexibility. If you do not have those qualities, things happen. People have children. People are married. Things happen. We are now adults. We're in our 30s. What is happening? I mean, give or take, this person is not in their 30s, but so I guess they have some learning to do. But at the end of the day, it really baffled me because it's like all of a sudden she was trying to convince herself that I was a bad friend and she had all this fake supporting evidence of she doesn't even go to the gym with me anymore. Well, yeah, because you literally live 30 minutes away from me. Your gym is also another 30 minutes away from me. So you pick up a mutual friend of ours because she didn't have a car. If you were giving me a ride to the gym, then I would go too. But other than that, no, I'm not going to drive 30, 40 minutes just to go to the gym with you every day. That makes no sense to me. When I have a gym in my building, that makes no sense. But she then used that as supporting evidence of why I'm not a good friend or whatever to support the fact that she felt abandoned in that moment instead of just being honest and saying, listen, this triggered me. I know people are not usually going to do that, but healthy people do. Listen, I got triggered because it made me feel like you canceled last minute. And the truth is I didn't want to go alone. And then she also brought up, oh, well, I don't know why she's going to that dinner anyway, because, well, the business meeting that I had, she didn't know why I was attending anyway, because didn't I not get the specific deal that I want? That's not what the business relationship is about. Just because one thing fell through does not, and that's not even technically my job description. Also, why on earth would I just completely cut that person off? Is that perhaps something you would do? But I'm not trying to project that onto you in any capacity, right? So I say all this to say that was the biggest riff and the beginning of the down slope in our relationship, because once I saw that her thoughts began to spiral in a way that was searching for supporting evidence to something that she was completely manufacturing in her head, created a fracture in our friendship where she then intentionally began to lean into being friends with our mutual friend even more for multiple reasons, but I'm not going to get into it. But that was definitely one of them, I feel, because she felt like she has to triangulate. Oh, well, I feel abandoned by her and she did this to me. So now I'm just going to be more your friend than her friend, right? Like that's what it sort of turned into. It's because she's an immature person and it kind of just is what it is. Like to me, at the end of the day, I have no regrets about the termination of our friendship because she's just not a healthy person for me to be around or be in my life. Like she doesn't meet that quota. And I'm not the right person to be in her life either. So it goes both ways. But at the end of the day, like I said, being villainized, it isn't the easiest thing to traverse through, especially when your character is being misjudged so so poorly. Like it's absolutely asinine. Or if you were in a situation where the goalpost keeps moving, right? Every explanation is going to create another accusation. You answer their concern, now there's another, and then there's another. And then eventually you start to realize you're actually not solving anything. You're participating in this endless fight of your defense, right? Some people, they do that. They trap you in something and they want to constantly look for ways where they're trying to prove that you are this specific type of person. Girl, next question. And this is why it is so important for you to be solid in who you are as an individual, or you will constantly be susceptible to people trying to convince you of who you are and also project onto you how they're feeling, or maybe also how they are, right? You have to be a very strong-minded person, okay, to traverse through life, because people will really try and make you switch identities with them, where all of a sudden you're feeling like, man, am I this way? Am I a bad friend? No, nothing of the above. In fact, you're a bad friend, because I didn't go around trying to change public perception of you. I didn't go around trying to say, well, because you even felt this way, that this must be this. I was still even willing when that happened to give it another chance, even though I knew in my gut, me being older, there was a fracture, but I fully was willing to let it go. I met up with her in person at her house to fully resolve the situation. Would you believe that when I got to this individual's house, it was the last thing that she wanted to talk about? Like, oh, all of a sudden it was not a big deal anymore. But you made a big stink about it, stinka. You made a big stink about it. So let's actually talk about it. Because if there's one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to talk to your face. If there's one thing I'm going to do is I'm going to confront you. Hello, don't start, none won't be none. So to me, if you come to me with a scheme that Todd set up to come at me with the BS, I'm going to address it, okay? So you can imagine my shock and surprise when she did not, it's almost like she was like, I'm sorry, I love you. I was just like feeling like extra emotional, that like really running over the issue, trying to make it seem like, oh, it was nothing. And that really threw me for a loop, because I'm like, I know the things that you said to our mutual friend about me, and it's not a big deal. That's when I said, oh shoot, this is way bigger than I thought. There's a fracture here, because she's an unhealthy person. So she's pretending to get over it because she's uncomfortable with discussing it after she blew up about it. And she's acting like she's over it now because I'm in her presence. So she's over it now. She's getting the attention that she wants. But the second that something else happens that triggers those unhealthy thoughts again, she will resort to villainizing me again in her story, because that's just who she is. And it is what it is. So that's when I realized, yeah, the friendship definitely was a ticking time bomb. But like I said, you don't want to participate in an endless defense of yourself and constantly defending your character. That is how you know you and an individual are just not going to work out. Platonically, romantically, it's not going to work out. So anytime you have to constantly defend your character, it just obviously means that they are committed to misunderstanding you. And it's not really worth it. It's not worth it to feel like you're constantly fighting for the person to truly understand what you meant when you said this, what you meant when you did this. This also reminds me of a story where I made a comment to someone. I don't remember what it was, but they asked me like, oh, like, would you live here? And I was like, no, I think I feel more comfortable living like in the neighborhood that I grew up around just because it's what I know. And I remember one time in, I guess, a debate or something or a conversation, I ended up hearing as supporting evidence from another person that the person that I made that comment to was trying to use that as context as to me being condescending, saying that I was making a comment saying that I would never live in a neighborhood like where she lived, and stuff like that, like trying to make myself seem like I'm better, higher, what have you. And I was like, wait, actually what? I remember hearing so much and like crying about it because I couldn't believe that what I genuinely meant, and even in the way that I said it, was so misconstrued. And now I know in hindsight that it was 100% intentional. I do know that now. But at the time, I just remember feeling so much hurt and pain that what kind of person would I be that I would just outright say something like that to someone and be like, "Ugh, I would never live in this neighborhood." On top of that, it wasn't even a bad neighborhood. So what are you talking about? And where are you getting that from? But it's because that person already had a certain view of me, just like when I told that same person, oh, no, I don't drink. And then they made up a lie talking about I'm judging them for drinking and all these different things. No, you're putting those expectations on yourself. When they found out that I was a vegan, oh, well, do you know that being vegan isn't healthy? I don't even know where you're getting this from, what you're talking about. Why are you talking to me about this? Because they were putting it on their mind. Okay, well, oh my gosh, does she think she's better than me because she eats differently than me? Like, I need to figure out ways to show her that like this isn't healthy or what courses through those tiny brain cells, babe? What courses through that? Not much, because every single thing I say is being held against me. Like, I can't say anything without hearing it back in some sort of way. You understand? And that is just so exhausting. I can't, so I won't. I'm not dealing with that anymore. Yeah, next question. And these types of people too will probably most likely weaponize your vulnerability, okay? If you explain your fears, your concerns, your past, or your trauma, or your insecurities, months later, these things come back out during an argument, not to heal, but simply to win. I remember one time I mentioned to the same psychotic individual, yes, psychotic, I was like, yeah, I used to be friends with, this person, but I don't know, we're just not friends anymore. Like, I don't really know what happened. Life happens, but left it, no drama. She turns it into, and that's why this person isn't your friend anymore, because this and that. And I was like, wait, why are you acting like this is something that you know? Like, you don't even know this person and you're just trying to use that as supporting evidence. Like, you're just really grasping for straws. And I think it's also because some people have such high expectations of who you actually are and how you present yourself. I know that that's something that I have struggled with in some of my friendships. The newer ones, not my like lifers, is people will come into my life and I'm exactly who I present to be. You meet me in person, my personality is the same. Like there's no difference between me on and off camera. There really isn't, besides what I might not wear makeup or something like that, or maybe, but I do look wearing makeup anyway, but whatever. There's not, personality wise, to my core, I am the same person on and off camera. I'm the same person at influencer events, content events, whatever it is. I'm the same person, okay? And a lot of people are not. A lot of people are not. And I do remember even one time a person made a comment to me saying like, you're exactly who you present to be online. Thank you, because I know I am. I know I am. And I think for some individuals, it's really difficult to be around someone that is like, wait, what? Like they are exactly who they present to be. Wow, they really are like better than me. No, you think I'm better than you. And that's why you're constantly searching for like a flaw. You want to study me so you can figure out, okay, like where's the crack here? What can I do to discredit her and invalidate her? What inconsistency can I find and search for so that it can make me feel like she's not all that perfect? She's not exactly who she presents to be. She can't be, because I'm not. Do you see what I'm saying? Do you see what I'm saying? And these are the types of characters that walk amongst us that will have us in situations where we're over-explaining ourselves all the time. I remember another time this psycho got upset at me because I didn't have the heart to tell her at first that I had church. At that point, I was going to church 4 times a week. I think I told her that I was going to be able to go stop at some like shoot that she had, but I ended up not being able to make it, to be honest. I wanted to support, I couldn't make it. So I let her know like a couple hours in advance, hey, I'm so sorry about this, but it's this time. Like I think I sent a voice note too. I'm not going to be able to make it. Next thing I know, she stopped speaking to me. So by the time we spoke and I have to chase after her and like, you know, run after her like she's like my girlfriend or something like that, to figure out why she was being distant, she was saying, oh, it was because after you said that, then my sister couldn't end up coming, and then the photographer was late, and it sort of seemed like I was the onset and the catalyst of like the day not going the way it was supposed to. So it was all my fault. It was all my fault that I like let you know hours in advance, like, hey, I'm not going to be able to make it for your shoot, be back at my house by 6 something so that I can then be in church, like, and my church is not close to my house in any capacity. So I'm not going to be able to make it. And she blamed me for that. Yeah. So that's just how these people are. And also, they never extend you the benefit of the doubt. No. You benefit of the doubt? No, ma'am. Healthy relationships, they assume good intentions until evidence suggests otherwise. Unhealthy dynamics are always assuming the worst. And that, my friend, is how you know you have an unhealthy person on your hands. That is how I knew that when that whole situation happened where I had to cancel on my friend for my own business venture, and it fractured our friendship because she went and talked about me to a mutual friend and started coming up with all these hypotheticals and these scenarios of this and yeah. That's how I knew she was unhealthy, because how did it catastrophize that quickly when we've never had any prior indication of anything else before? Your unhealthy is showing. Your unhealthy is showing. Well, because like I said, healthy relationships assume good intentions until the evidence suggests otherwise. Why did you scrape on your hands and knees to try and come up with evidence of that supports why I'm no longer a good friend when last week we were as thick as thieves? And I'm sorry, as a healthy person, that is my number one indicator of how I know who I'm dealing with. And that's what makes it easy for me to be like, okay, bye, done. Next, I'm not dealing with that. I'm not. Figure that out on your own, because you're not only going to have this problem with me, you're going to have this problem with a lot of people. And she did. And she was, and she does. Hello, okay? Unhealthy dynamics are always going to assume the worst. If your friend knows you super well, they should be able to determine what you would and would not say. Not only that, but they should be able to discern what your intentions are. They're my lifers, they know, like, no, that does not sound anything like what Aisha would say. And they're gonna assume the best. They're gonna assume good intentions until the evidence suggests otherwise. I remember I had another friend. It's been a long life, babe. Had a couple friends there. And I remember someone, she called me one day. Thank God that's over. Oh my gosh. She called me one day and was like, yeah, someone wrote me on TikTok and they were just in my live and they were saying like, why are you so jealous of Aisha or whatever the case is? And I remember thinking like, why are you calling me with this? Like, and then I'm like, okay, where is she going with this? I have no idea. Like, she gives me anxiety, like, or gave me anxiety, like being around her. It was like, after a while, I started distancing myself because it was just her only way to connect with me was drama. So she called me, oh, here we go, like with this. I'm like, okay, where is this going? And I was like, okay, that's so weird. She's like, yeah, well, I just want to know, are you talking about me to anyone like in church and stuff? Girl, what? Are you okay? What are you? I was like, no. And what I learned with that particular person was I started severely under responding to anything they would say. I would give them dust. I would give them nothing because for them, they were the type of person that was so unhealthy that you giving them a response and a reaction makes them feel cared for, makes them feel fought for. Well, I'm doing none of the above, so I'm going to give you nothing. You're going to get nothing from me because that doesn't make any sense. If you were truly my friend, why would you ever assume that I would ever even do something like that? Unless you were already feeling that way in your own, you're thinking, oh, well, I wonder if this is a possibility that she could have said that. Are you okay? But it's because you would probably do that. And that's why you didn't leave it off the table. And then she also mentioned that somebody said, yeah, well, she talks about you or something like that. And obviously a troll, a very random person. And I remember thinking, she was engaging with the person saying, well, she would never say something like that, I don't think, and I'll just like talk to her about it. Why are you, I don't remember, I'm paraphrasing, but I remember when she shared with me how she responded, I remember thinking to myself, why would you even engage with that person in a way that indicates that you almost don't believe that I wouldn't do something like that? Like there's a part of you that wants to check in with me to see if, because she wanted to preserve herself from seeming like she was stupid on the chance that if she defended and said, no, she would never do something like that, she was like trying to preserve herself from feeling stupid. Does that make sense what I'm trying to say? So like I said, they're not going to extend you the benefit of the doubt because they're more invested in caring about soothing whatever manufactured drama they have and made up in their own heads. All right. Why does this happen? Well, sometimes people misunderstand you because they're feeling hurt or they're feeling stressed or they're seeing the situation differently. But other times people, they resist understanding because it protects a belief, it protects a narrative, it protects a position that they do not want to be questioned. So when someone is consistently refusing to engage with what you're actually saying, more explanation often is not going to be the resolution to the problem. So like I said, I want to reiterate this. More explanation is not going to solve the problem when somebody is consistently refusing to engage with what you were actually saying, AKA they are committed to misunderstanding you. Explaining yourself more is not the answer and the resolution. And then think about this from a faith perspective. Jesus did not answer every single accusation, and he was accused of a lot. Okay, sometimes he spoke, sometimes he remained silent. Silence wasn't his weakness, right? Or it wasn't weakness, period. It was discernment, because not every battle needs to be fought. Like I just gave you the example of, I could tell that with certain individuals, they want a response and a reaction out of you because it makes them feel fought for, makes them feel like, oh, she cares. Look, she's getting riled up just like I do. Like just constant drama seeking. Like it was so exhausting. Where it's like, I just would, you know what they say? Anytime you feel relieved after the ending of something, that means it was definitely meant to be. When there's a sense of relief, and I felt a sense of relief from every single friendship that I've ever left, I felt a sense of relief. I've never once thought to myself, dang, I wish it didn't have to be this way. I really do miss this person. No, never. Okay, next question, And even in the Bible, it says in Proverbs, right? Don't answer a fool according to his folly. What does this mean? The Bible is teaching us wisdom in deciding when to answer people, okay? You don't have to answer everyone. And remember, some people, they want responses out of you. This just happened to me the other day where somebody tried to provoke me into a response. They were being very aggressive, all the different things. And this was like an older woman too, like older, okay? We're talking like in her 60s or something like that, And she was just very challenging, and it was just very, very bizarre. And I had to really like calm down and discern like, okay, like this is an older woman, mature woman, so to speak, in age, not in wisdom. And I just want to be delicate with how I'm handling the situation because, I grew up respecting my elders. I don't know about everybody else, but like there's a certain way you have to handle things, and I just, whatever, I'll leave that there. Now, you have to ask yourself in conclusion, am I explaining myself because this person genuinely wants, to understand me? Or am I hoping that by understanding me, this will finally validate me, right? Your peace should never depend on you winning every misunderstanding because you will lose every single time because some people will never, ever get it. And now you're exhausted, you have anxiety, you're depressed, you're frustrated, you're fighting them, you're chasing them down to please understand where I'm coming from, please. And it doesn't happen. What would you do if it never happened? You have to just let it go. Some conversations end not because everything needs to be explained, no, but because you have to realize continuing is not going to produce any more understanding, okay? So in conclusion, I'll say this. You do not owe explanations to people who have repeatedly shown that they are unwilling to hear you. Because sometimes the healthiest response is not another explanation. It is a boundary of saying, it's time to cut you off. End of story, end of discussion. Next question. With that being said, thank you so much for joining me on today. I love you guys so much. Make sure that you give the podcast a 5-star rating, and also make sure that you are subscribed to the Quality Queen Control podcast. Make sure that your post notifications are turned on. Thank you so much for all my loyal followers that have told me girl, where have you been? We haven't seen you in a month. Girl, we had to work that out internally with the team, girl. Okay? Because mama didn't know. Okay? I'm running a lot of things. So thank you guys so much for flagging that for me. And yeah, with that being said, do not forget that I love you and God loves you. I'll speak to you, beautiful angels, in my next podcast episode. Mwah.